Read about this triangle framework that you and the Madrona team have for evaluating founders and their pitches. Can you share more about this triangle framework and then share a contrarian example where one side of that triangle looked weak, yet you still invested? And what did you learn from that decision?
Yeah. So the triangle framework is really a set of questions that are why questions. The top of the triangle is the question of why does this problem exist? And we're really looking for founders that are obsessed about why a certain problem exists and why now it might be able to be solved better than it ever could be before, which leads to the second point of the triangle, which is the why now question. What has happened in society? What has happened technologically that can enable something to actually work now that couldn't have worked before? There was something called grid computing in the 90s. It failed. And then there was something called cloud computing in the 2000s because of virtualization technology and in the rise of open source. It worked that time where it didn't work previously. And then the third why is why this? Why is this the solution? And that's the area that oftentimes founders have it directionally correct, but specifically wrong. And whether that is, the famous examples like Uber that tried to provide their solution to town car services when it was actually the everyday mom and pop driver that became what really drove the growth of Uber, or even a wonderful company like Gradial that initially was going to apply content execution to the execution of configuring software and getting it deployed, but then learned their way into the fact that the customers for that problem thought they could solve that problem themselves. And then they went over to the marketing folks and they're like, as much as you can give me. And ultimately that leads to the final why, which is the why us. Why does this team in the center of that triangle think that they can solve the problems in the context of the technologies with a solution that they can iteratively build better than anybody else in the world? And we're looking for kind of coherence in what you might call founder market fit within that triangle.